This is my quarantine tank. I'm Fear, and this is Fear the Reefer. Look at all these pretty fish. So pretty, swimming around, living their best lives. Their owner is just dropping the ball. I'm sad to say that this setup did not last long for me. I got ick. Yes, the dreaded ick. It sucks. Ick kills basically everything. Sometimes you can save it, sometimes it's just too late. I tried to cut quarters. I did not quarantine the way that I should quarantine. I don't think this limb I'm gonna go out onto has to be very strong, but I would say most reefers don't actually quarantine. They just throw it in and hope for the best. Sometimes this fish gets sick and they're able to pull it out and treat it after the fact. And that's pretty much what I've been doing for 6 years. I've never really had an issue, and so I figured that these people that are getting all these problems, they're just getting bad fish and they're getting bad luck. Well, all you need for ick to wipe out your tank is just one sick fish, and that's it. One of these tanks that I purchased brought ick into my tank. It really sucked, and honestly, any other year, I might have just thought, well, this was bad luck, I'm not gonna buy fish from that store again. I'm gonna go to my tried and true store. I shouldn't have just gone for instant gratification. But because of COVID and living through COVID, I've learned that, you know what, it's better to just eradicate this thing from the beginning than to just live with it for years. So I pulled the trigger and I pulled all the fish out and I put them into this tank and to this tank. Each tank is 20 gallons. I was able to split them up 4 and 4. I lost some fish even in quarantine after I started treating. I used cupramine, which seems to be the industry standard, tried and true. Thankfully, after 2 full cycles, I was able to eradicate the ick from these fish in my hospital tanks. However, I have a reef tank. There are no real tried and true bulletproof medications that you can dose to a reef aquarium, meaning you have corals, you have invertebrates, that'll wipe ick out. The only way to wipe out ick from a reef aquarium that is 100% bulletproof is to leave your tank completely fallow for at least 76 days. Completely fallow means no fish. You can leave your invertebrates in there, you can leave your coral in there. Basically, the parasite of ick has nothing to feed on. So you eliminate the life cycle by just starving it out. So I kept my fish through 2 cycles of cupramine, which lasted about 45 days in these hospital tanks. But then I pulled all the cupramine out of the water and just left them in these tanks for another 30 days or so. Once that eradication process was over, I was able to put the fish that survived back into the tank, which was a very happy day for me. The new approach is I'm just gonna do everything the right way. There's a reason why it's called the right way. It's the way it should be done. I converted the hospital tanks into my quarantine tanks, and now any fish that I get is going into quarantine, no questions asked, for 30 days before it goes into my display tank. If it's a fish that's not gonna work out through cupramine or copper safe, I'm not gonna bother, because I wanna make sure that I don't wipe out my entire aquarium again just because I got a fish spur of the moment that seemed cool but isn't gonna work for me. You have to plan out your livestock. This aquarium is very simple. I've had it basically since I started with fish. This was a freshwater fish tank maybe 8 years ago. I got it for 20 bucks at Petco. They do a $1 per gallon sale all the time. Hang on the back filter, a heater that's rated for 20 gallons, a thermometer, and I bought the Toonsy automatic top-off system to make sure fresh water stays in the tank. And this ammonia badge is very important, especially when you're first starting out a quarantine system. There's no live bacteria in your system. It's brand new. So how are you gonna have the cycle go on and quarantine fish at the same time? That's gonna be way too much stress. So what you do is before you start getting fish and before you start quarantining stuff, get some biomedia and put it in the sump of your main display. Leave it there for a couple weeks and let it get coated with live nitrifying bacteria. Then when you set up these quarantine systems, grab a couple pieces, throw it in the tank, and that'll instantly be able to handle any ammonia that come from new fish. Just to be safe, you want to have this ammonia badge on here to make sure that you don't have an ammonia spike, because that'll kill the fish instantly or create blisters on your fish and stress them out even more, which will probably end up killing them eventually anyway. So get this thing, it's cheap, and it'll be very helpful. You oftentimes read never put sand in an aquarium, especially when you're treating for ick, because it gives the ick a place to reproduce. However, a lot of fish require sand in order to feel safe or to mimic their feeding habits like diamond gobies or chorus wrasses. So when I have fish like that, I just get a little piece of Tupperware that has a tiny bit of sand on it so wrasses can still bury themselves and gobies can still pick up the sand, and it's really not going to make that much of a difference, and it shouldn't affect any of the ick management because the water is full of copper. The other argument against sand in your quarantine tank is that it's going to absorb some of the medication. I think that is valid. However, if you test daily, you'll be able to make sure that you maintain the proper dosage level for whatever copper product or other medication that you're using. A main component of having a quarantine tank is you need to maintain pristine water quality, otherwise you're going to stress the fish out and they're going to die from that. So you got to do weekly water changes at minimum. Sometimes you can do more if you feel like you need to change out some ammonia or you have a nitrate spike, but at least once a week you need to do a 20% water change. So this is a 20-gallon long tank, but actually only holds about 15 gallons when you have space at the top. I've marked that off here, so I know I'm always at the right water level. And it's also very important that you know how much water is in your quarantine tank so that you dose properly. If you overdose with copper, you're going to kill all your fish. How do you maintain a proper copper dose and do water changes? It's really very simple. If you know you're going to pull out 4 gallons, then you know you're going to put in 4 gallons. So you do the math and you figure out how much copper you need in 4 gallons to maintain at least 0.5 ppm. And then you just take out the old water, mix up the new water before it goes in, and then you put in the new water. Make sure you check your levels before it goes in. This is how you do it. And here's a tip. I see people doing water changes and they suck on one end of the tube. It's really not necessary. This whole thing works with gravity. All you do is you take your gravel sifter, you put it in the water, you fill it up so that there are no more bubbles in it. And then you take it out of the water and you'll see the water starts going down. Once it starts going down, you put it back in the water, let the bubbles come out, and now you've got a siphon. Okay, now I just fill a fresh bucket, the same level of water that I just took out. You always want to make sure your salinity is the same as what you're replacing. I've already checked this so I know it is. Like I said, I use cupramine. This bottle lasts forever. You don't need a lot of cupramine to get to the right dosage level. I know from doing this many times exactly how many drops I'm supposed to put into this gallon of water. But on the back, you've got the dosage amount, so all you need to do is just simple math to figure out how much cupramine you need for the amount of water that you're putting in. Just give it a little shake. I don't know if you need to, but I do. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 around. Give it a good mix. Be sure to check out my video on testing your copper levels. I use the Hammer checker. Be sure to check it out. So that's how you do a water change on a quarantine tank using copper. I hope this video was useful. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more videos just like this.